The Dynasty Fantasy Football offseason is starting to wrap up. We're getting into the time that we want to start thinking about redraft, but today I'm going to be breaking down every single move that I've made in Dynasty this offseason. This will be my, accountability check, going through all my leagues, how I spent all my rookie picks, how I traded some of my players away, how I acquired certain players, and we're going to go through every single league by league, breaking down everything that's transpired so far. So it should be a lot of fun. Should be a fun exercise to see, how I evaluate my leagues, the teams that I have, if I'm rebuilding, if I'm contending, if I'm in a house money window, all that good stuff will be covered in today's video. If you enjoy, leave a like down below. I'm literally giving my strategy away to some of my league mates who watch this channel, so really appreciate that. And subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. But with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so before we get into it, throughout this video, I'm going to be outlining all of my Dynasty teams. And if you want to do a similar exercise with your teams and evaluate, what situation your team might be in, see how good your team is relative to your league mates, check out our My Teams feature over on FlockFantasy.com. You can load your sleeper ID into the My Teams feature and feast your eyes basically on all of your rosters across any number of Dynasty leagues that you might have, all of your league mates' rosters. You can see who has the best quarterback core according to our crowdsourced community rankings, who has the best running back core, wide receiver core, how good do your picks stack up, where are you strong, where are you weak, and very soon you'll have the ability to actually see my specific opinion or Mason's specific opinion or Danny's specific opinion, whoever you want to sort that by. But a great feature on our site, and you can also submit your team for review as an annual Mother Flocker. You get a free voucher to do that once a year. Every single league that I'm in, before I get into all these, is a 12-team Superflex league. So there is no one quarterback talk in this video because I only play in Superflex. There's no 10-teamers, there's no 8-teamers, no 14-teamers. Every single league is 12 teams, Superflex. Some of them are half PPR, some of them are tight end premium, some are full PPR, some of them are 6 points, some of them are best ball. There's actually a Devy League that I'm going to break down here. So for each league, I'll definitely let you know which league scoring settings we're talking about here. And if you're a podcast listener, I would say you should probably head to YouTube because this is more of a visual type of video. So we're going to kick things off with the Busch League Dynasty Best Ball League. So again, 6 point per passing touchdown, 12-team Superflex PPR league. It is a best ball format. So you don't have to start your lineup or set your lineups each week. In this team, you guys can see that my team is quite strong. Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson, Deshaun Watson at quarterback, Kyron Williams, Devon Achane, Kenneth Walker, Rashad White, Blake Corum at running back, Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Nico Collins, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, and others at wide receiver, Sam Laporta, Pat Freiermuth, Jake Ferguson at tight end. I did come into the offseason possessing the 107, 112, 201, 205, and 307 as well, but I did end up making a number of trades. I came into this offseason with this team basically wanting to consolidate some of my assets this year. I was a house money team, which I use that term all the time, basically just means that I had a very young team with a lot of draft capital, so I wasn't really forced to compete in 2023 because my team could have competed if things broke right, but I suffered some injuries to my quarterbacks and things of that nature. So my team still snuck into the playoffs despite those injuries, but now I am a true contender, probably the favorite with this being best ball. My depth of studs is really powerful. So when you look at my team, you can see it's pretty strong across the board. In my rookie draft, I only ended up keeping one of those picks, right? I had the 107, 112, 201, 205, 307. I pretty much sold every single one of them and only ended up spending the 212 on Blake Corum during the rookie class, and it's mainly due to the trades that I made right here. So on May 1st, I ended up selling off the 112, 201, and 307, went ahead and purchased Devon Achane and T. Higgins. I mean, the way I broke this trade down to me was Devon Achane I would rather have than the 112 and the 307, of course, especially with Jonathan Brooks and Audric Estime being those picks. You can kind of envision, I sold basically a back-end RB1, top 15 running back in Dynasty in Brooks, and then like a lower end kind of handcuff option in Audric Estime for a guy who's a top 6 dude, and then 201 Trey Benson over T. Higgins. To me, I just thought T. Higgins was a much better option there, so I love the discount I got on those competitive assets. And then the other trade, which I've broken down on this channel already, was I went and bought Justin Jefferson, receiving him and the 212, which I eventually took Blake Corum with that pick. And I sold off Chris Olave, the 107, and the 205. As I mentioned in the trade strategy video, the reason that the opposing manager was, likely to accept a trade like this is because he was a rebuilding team, wanted some young assets, wanted a quarterback in in JJ McCarthy. So he definitely made out okay in that trade, even though a lot of people said, Justin Jefferson's worth way more than that. So, I mean, looking at this team, there's not much else I'm looking to do with this roster. I think I can just go right into the season, try and compete. I got like 4 guys who are top 12 Dynasty running backs. I got like 5 top 24 Dynasty wide receivers. I have the tight end 1 in Dynasty. I have another top 12 tight end in Ferguson, another top 15 tight end in Pat Freiermuth, Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson, Deshaun Watson, all top 20-ish Dynasty quarterbacks who all have big spike week potential, and I have all my future capital 2025 and 2026. So this is a competitive team. My team's feature says that this team is the best in the league right now, so I feel pretty good about that one going into the regular season. So moving on to the next team, and I didn't actually mention this, there is 10 teams that I'm going to be breaking down today. I'm in a lot of Dynasty leagues, unfortunately, as a Dynasty content creator, but Tone Setter Truthers, the next league that we're going to break down, again, a 12-team super flex like all of the other leagues, but it is a 6-point per passing touchdown with a half tight end premium there. The offseason plan to look at this team was planning to get younger, retool a little bit, and gain some depth, specifically at wide receiver and quarterback. My team has been really good the last 3 years. This league is in its 3rd season. All 3 years, I've made the playoffs. All 3 years, I've secured a bye. So I've been a very, very dominant regular season team. Unfortunately, I've never even made the championship. I've gotten bounced in round 1 or round 2 of the playoffs all 3 of the last 3 years. So didn't love that. I made a trade with Danny last season to move off of Christian McCaffrey. I ended up moving off of Christian McCaffrey and Devontae Adams, securing Travis Etienne, the 107, and a 2025 second, which to me was a good reset, a good retool to get this team a little bit younger. Even if I have to suffer a little bit of immediate production decline in 2024, I think my team will be better off as a result of that. Sometimes when the things are not breaking your way, it's a mistake to just hold on and be like, you know what, just give me one more year. I'm going to try and compete again, especially if you think the other teams in your league are getting better, which is what I've noticed with this league. So, I mean, you could see my team: Drake May, Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Sam Howell at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley, Ramondre Stevenson, and others at running back. So very strong there. Garrett Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, DJ Moore, Keon Coleman, Marquise Brown, and others at wide receiver. And then George Kittle is my main tight end. I entered the offseason with the 107, the 310, the 404, the 410, and I also had 2 extra seconds in 2025 that I no longer possess. So, I mean, looking at the rookie draft, you can see that I secured Jaden Daniels at the 105, Keon Coleman at the 203, and then Malik Washington there at the 404, and Tyrone Tracy at the 410. I made a lot of deals during the rookie draft. There was actually a net of 2 trade-ups that I had from that 107. As I mentioned, my goal this offseason was get better at quarterback, get better at wide receiver. So my goal was to at least get up to 106 so I could secure Rome Odunze or one of the quarterbacks that ended up falling. So I traded up from 107 to 106 using a 2025 second. It was actually Danny's, and Danny's team is probably the best in this league. He won the championship last year. So late projected 2025 second to move up 1 spot to secure Odunze. Then I saw Jaden Daniels sliding down the board a little bit, and I didn't really have many Jaden Daniels shares. So what I ended up doing was trading up 1 more spot again with the 310, which became Luke McCaffrey, and getting Jaden Daniels. So again, essentially the net of 2 trades was 107, 2025 late projected second, and the 310 to get up to Jaden Daniels at 105. I ended up securing more Jaden Daniels shares across my other rookie drafts, and I'll get to that in a second. I also made another trade to get some more wide receiver depth. As I mentioned, Jamar Chase was on my roster. I love Jamar Chase. He's obviously a great player. He's my wide receiver 1 in Dynasty right now. Jahan Dotson, a fine top 60 wide receiver, a guy that's a bit of an upside swing. I needed a little bit more depth at wide receiver, so I got Garrett Wilson, who's still a stud, could actually be similar value in terms of Jamar Chase this time next year with a great season. I also get DJ Moore, solid wide receiver 2 in Dynasty, and I got the 203, which I selected Keon Coleman with. So I accomplished that goal of getting a little bit more wide receiver depth by selling off on a stud. Obviously, I sold it to Danny, so not great. His team was already good, and I just gave him one of the best receivers in Dynasty. Don't love that, but I did need that to make my team better. As I mentioned on the trade strategy video, sometimes it hurts giving a great asset to a good team in Danny's team, but it made my team better in the long term, which is why I made the deal. And then I ended up securing another Jaden Daniels share in another one of my leagues, and I am a little bit lower on Jaden Daniels and didn't have enough Drake May. So what I ended up doing was sending Jaden Daniels and my other projected late 2025 second, which is my own in this case, and I received Drake May to add to my team. So I'm really happy with how the team turned out. Obviously, Drake May Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields. There's better quarterback cores been assembled for competitive teams. But given the strength that I have at running back, JT, ETN, Saquon, Ramondre Stevenson, Garrett Wilson, Ayuk, DJ Moore, Coleman, Marquise Brown at wide receiver, and then Kittle as my tight end, I feel like I can get away with a bit of a lighter quarterback core, and hopefully Drake May turns into a difference maker at quarterback that I can build around. I also still have my 2025 first should I decide to use it. So, I mean, looking at this team, again, this is one of those that I'm trying to run back, trying to compete yet again. Hopefully, I can actually have some playoff luck this year and get beyond the first and the second round in the playoffs, because I have just gotten super, super unlucky week 15 and week 16 the last couple of years. Moving on to the next league that we have here is no Flockin. Again, 12-team Superflex league, 6 point per passing touchdown, 0.5 tight end premium. My goal this offseason in this league was a little bit different than the previous one. I was a contender in the first 2 leagues. This one is more of I'm in a house money year this year. I was a rebuilder, a heavy rebuilder prior to this season. And my goal was to spend a lot of these picks that I had. As you guys can see, 102, 112, 202, 205, 206, 209, 210, 211, 301, 302, 309. Like, I had so many picks in this class. Also had a number of picks in 2025. And when you look at my team relative to the rest of my league on Flock Fantasy, it says I've built up the most amount of value. My goal this offseason was really spending those picks in a deep draft class, immediately triggering my house money window where if things break right, I mean, I have 2 stud quarterbacks, Josh Allen and CJ Stroud. I have a young running back core now with Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Wright, Chase Brown, Blake Corum, Audric Estime, Ray Davis. Like, I basically added this entire rookie class to my team. Marvin Harrison at wide receiver to go along with Nico Collins, Jordan Addison, added Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Jalen McMillan, Malik Washington. I added so many rookies to this team, and then Michael Mayer, Greg Dulcich are my current tight ends. I would like to go out and purchase another tight end, maybe a Dalton Kincaid, a Kyle Pitts, somebody like that. But for now, I'm just kind of being patient. There's a couple teams in the league that have a number of tight ends on their roster, so I'm hoping I can kind of wait out when they want to actually sell off those guys, or maybe Greg Dulcich, Michael Mayer turns into something. But regardless, I mean, I look at this team, I look at how I spent my rookie picks. I was just diligent, filling up my flex positions, running back, wide receiver. It didn't really stack up well that I could get Brock Bowers, although I did want to get Brock Bowers. I didn't feel like trading up for him. I didn't really have a great spot where I could take Ben Sinnott or Jatavian Sanders. I suppose I could have taken Ben Sinnott at the top of the second round. I just didn't end up doing that. But regardless, I think I look at this team, I feel really, really good about the value of this team and what it could become. And I also love some of the trades that I've ended up making with this roster. On March 31st, before the draft actually happened, I sold off Bryce Young in the 309 for the 112 and the 205. Now, I like Bryce Young. I think that this is probably the going rate for him, a late first rounder, mid-second for like a third swap. I think this was a fair trade, but given that I have Bryce Young in a couple other leagues and he hasn't really worked out so far, and he's a little bit of a riskier asset, I felt this was a really good price to offload his risk profile, especially knowing there's no reason for me to hold on to him. I have Josh Allen and CJ Stroud. He's never going to see the light of day in my lineup. If I need a third quarterback, I could always just go and buy a cheap one, or I could draft a guy in next year's rookie class who's going to be my third QB or whatever. I also ended up selling off the 210, which was obviously during the rookie draft I made this trade, and I got the 312, a 2024 third, and then another 2024 third. One of them was mine, and another one was a projected early to mid third. So to me, I love Troy Franklin, but I liked getting multiple bites at the apple, especially as a rebuilder. And then later on, I sell off QJ and a third for a mid-projected second. I found a QJ manager who actually believes in him to some degree. For me, I just wanted to offload that. I was not excited about QJ. I'm not excited about him still. So looking at this team, like I said, it's very much a house money team. If my young players step up, my young running backs, my young wide receivers, maybe I add a tight end at some point, this team is competitive, potentially. It has a chance to be really competitive. This league doesn't have a monster. It was just drafted last offseason, so I feel really good about this one. This is one of my favorite teams that I've built so far, just because it's so young. It's got so much of a high ceiling because of those 2 stud quarterbacks, because of Marvin, because of Nico Collins and Addison, and all the other guys that I've built up. So I feel really good about that no Flockin league. The next league that I'm going to break down here is the Get Faded League, which is another team in which I am a competitive build. Shallowest league that I'm in, it's only a half PPR, start 9, half tight end premium, 12-team league as well, Superflex as well. Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, and Bryce Young are my quarterbacks. As I mentioned, I have a lot of Bryce Young across my portfolio. Bijan Robinson, James Cook. I actually just traded for Joe Mixon today, which I'll break down here in a second. And then I also have Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, Tank Dell, Devontae Adams, who I just traded for, Dontavian Wicks. I added a couple other guys in the rookie class as well, like Xavier Worthy and a couple other dudes there. So I feel pretty good about this team. George Kittle is my main tight end. I had the 111, 210, 308, 402, and 411 entering the offseason. I actually didn't have any of my picks, but I made a lot of moves this offseason. So, I mean, that's how I spent my rookie draft, like you could see there. Xavier Worthy, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Ray Davis, and Jalen Coker were added to my team. I'm a huge fan of the trades that I made in this league. I know I put out this Amon-Ra trade because it was the first one I made. Not a lot of people really liked it. I sold off Amon-Ra St. Brown in a semi-shallow league format with Joe Flacco in a third. Who cares? And I got Tank Dell, the 111 and the 112. I had no Tank Dell across my portfolio, so I loved getting a share of him. And the 111 and the 112, respectively, were Ladd McConkey and Xavier Worthy. I didn't end up using that 112, but I still feel pretty good about the value that I got back for St. Brown. The next day, or the same day, actually, I sold off Kirk Cousins and a second for Will Levis and the 210, which I felt really good about as well. And then I sold off Will Levis the next day, right after I had him on my roster for one day. Will Levis, the 112, and Kyler Algier for Kyler Murray and the 308. So I basically turned Kirk Cousins plus some like second round picks and a first round pick and, some amalgamation of other assets into Kyler Murray, right? Like I made a number of great trades, I think, in this league where I ended up with an elite quarterback where I kind of spun it out of nowhere. Like there was no business of me getting Kyler Murray out of this deal. And I basically dismantled Amon-Ra St. Brown into Tank Dell, Xavier Worthy, and Kyler Murray using a number of other pieces. So I feel really good about the trades that I've made in this league. And as I mentioned today, I just made a trade selling off Jalen Polk, who I got to fall to me at the 210, Calvin Ridley, and a 2025 fourth in exchange for Devontae Adams and Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, good running back depth for my team. I really only have Bijan and Cook, who I can rely on right now. And then Devontae Adams, who I think is an upgrade over Calvin Ridley from an immediate production standpoint. My team is the second best in the league, according to our Flock Fantasy tool. So I feel pretty good about my ability to compete in this league. My starting lineup is very strong. I feel really good about this one. So moving on to the next league here, that is Devy Disciples. So this league is a Devy league. And if you guys don't know what Devy means, it means that you actually draft a couple players that are in college still. So it's not just a Dynasty league. You actually get to watch some of your players on Saturdays as well. 12-team PPR, 6-point per passing touchdown, half tight end premium. My team was a 1-year punt coming out of the startup last year. It has improved a ton since then. Basically because I've hit on a lot of my Devy players, actually. I think I've done a really good job of hitting on my Devy guys. I got Malik Neighbors in the second round of the Devy draft last year, which felt pretty good. Jatavian Sanders, I got in the third round of the Devy draft, which felt pretty good. So I feel pretty good about that. I also drafted Shadur Sanders, Jackson Dart, and KJ Jefferson rounds 4, 5, and 6 of the Devy draft last year. And I think with Sanders and Dart specifically, they really have a chance to become first-round quarterbacks in the future. I also had Emeka Egbuka in last year's Devy draft, who I drafted in the first round of that. And then this year, I drafted Trey Harris, Elik Ayomanor, and Taj Brooks. So that's Trey Harris, wide receiver of Ole Miss, Elik Ayomanor, wide receiver of Stanford, who went for like 285 yards against Colorado, and Travis Hunter, who's projected to be a high pick at cornerback, and then Taj Brooks, running back of Texas Tech. Those were my additions to my Devy pool this year. In addition to the team that I have, Lawrence Prescott, you guys can see the team there. My wide receiver core is loaded. Amon-Ra, Malik Neighbors, Chris Olave, Ladd McConkey, Devontae Adams, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Malachi Corley. Like the receiver core is absolutely juiced to the brim. And then, obviously, the rookie draft was different because there was Devy players already taken. There was no Caleb Williams up for grabs. There was no Drake May up for grabs. There was no Marvin Harrison up for grabs. So I picked at the 105 down the board, and I got Ladd McConkey, Malachi Corley, and Isaac Garendo to add to my team there. So I feel pretty good about that. The one thing I would say I regret about this league is this trade that I ended up making where I sent away my Devy 105 this year, which Ashton Janty, running back of Boise State, who right now is probably my RB1 or 2 in the 2025 running back class. I sold him off. I didn't think he would be there at 105. That's why I sold this pick before the Devy draft actually happened. And I got Devontae Adams and Raheem Mostert. Again, my team it's competitive. I can compete with this team with Kenneth Walker, Raheem Mostert as that light running back core. I've tried like hell to get better running back production. I've gone after Gibbs. I've gone after Bijan. I've gone after Breece Hall. I have so many wide receivers. I have the ability to go after guys at the running back position. It's just been hard to get a deal done. I feel pretty confident that I'm a top 3 team in this league, given the strength of my wide receiver core. My quarterbacks are solid. My tight ends are solid. And I feel good with Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott as my main QBs too, because Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, I feel pretty confident one of those guys will turn into my long-term QB3 once they get into the NFL. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about this Devy team, man. I got Emeka Egbuka next year coming in, Trey Harris too. I think both of those guys could legitimately be top 2 round wide receivers in the NFL draft, and I'll just have an embarrassment of riches at that position group. So feel pretty good about that team. Think I can compete this year. The next team I'm going to break down here is the Can't Wait League. You can see on the screen there, half PPR, tight end premium. Does have a league median scoring format. I'm not a huge fan of league medians, but I'm not the commissioner in this league, and I actually was just invited to join it. So I did get into it, even though I didn't know there was a league median. Full rebuild last year out of the startup, which took place during the 2022 season. So the reason the league is called Can't Wait is because during the 2022 season, like week 10 or whatever, is when we actually drafted this team. I had a couple misses during the rookie class last year, QJ being one of them at 108, 109, where I took him. Bryce Young, I took over CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, which I don't feel good about. Everybody makes mistakes. Again, I thought Bryce Young was a can't-miss quarterback prospect. Maybe he still is, but for now, that looks like a big yikes given how valuable CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson have become in relation to him. And then I also, I drafted Jahan Dotson out of the startup and stuff, and some guys that just are not nearly as valuable as where I picked them. So this team is not in the best of shape right now, but I do have a lot of great assets. I mean, my quarterback core, Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Bryce Young. I have embarrassment of riches there. My running backs are nothing, which is the way I like it right now when I'm not in a competitive window, because that, sheds some production off of my team. Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison, Xavier Worthy, Christian Watson, Jalen Polk, Troy Franklin, and others at wide receiver. Again, could be better at that position, but I feel pretty good about that. Kyle Pitts is my main tight end with Dolchich and Kraft there in reserve. And I do have some extra picks next year, a couple extra 2s, and then my first, which projects to be pretty early given the weakness that I have at running back. So if I can just have my picks hit this year, maybe move off of one of my quarterbacks, specifically Drake May or Bryce Young, I could go into this next season with a better situation. If I could sell Drake May for a stud receiver or a stud running back or something like that, I feel like I would be in a lot better position. Now, I do want to address something right off the top. You guys can see the draft board of this league. A lot of you guys might look at this and be like, why the hell did I draft Drake May at 105? Because Rome Odunze was there. I had Caleb Williams already. I could have just drafted the stack. I needed wide receivers more than I needed quarterbacks. But again, coming back to the point that I made in the Don't Make These Mistakes video, I'm not drafting for need in rookie drafts, man, especially when I'm not competitive. I believe that Drake May has a much higher value accumulation ceiling than Rome Odunze. Ergo, I have him a tier ahead of Rome Odunze in my rookie draft rankings. I tried like hell to trade down from this pick. I wanted to do just a 1-pick swap, get a little second-round pick in the future, whatever the case is, take Rome Odunze and be on my merry way. But when the gun was to my head, I couldn't do it. I couldn't take Rome Odunze over Drake May because I have Drake May rated a solid round ahead of startup ADP than I do Rome Odunze. I don't pass on quarterbacks who I believe can be top 5 to 10 startup picks. I just won't do it because if Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Patrick Mahomes all hit, then I'm going to be absolutely loaded at quarterback, and I can move off of one of those guys for a Godfather offer in the future when I'm actually ready to compete. I'm not in a competitive window, so to me, Drake May was the best player on the board. That is who I selected. Again, a lot of people might not agree with that stance. Maybe I should have just taken Rome Odunze. It's not a big deal, but to me, Drake May is a tier ahead of him. That's why I took him. Some of the trades that I ended up making during the rookie class, I ended up trading down a lot and securing a little bit more capital in the future because I felt like my team needed more picks because I still have a lot of holes at running back and at wide receiver. Especially. So originally I was picking at the 201. I traded from the 201 down to the 205 and basically gave up the 312 and Josh Palmer in the process. And I pocketed a second next year, got the 205 and the 305. So to me, I loved that trade. I was able to get pretty good value there. At the 205, I didn't end up making a selection there either. I sold the 205 plus the 401 for the 212 and the 302. So again, pocketing 2 more picks. I get Troy Franklin and Jalen McMillan with those. And then I sent off the 302 and the 305, Jalen McMillan and Malachi Corley respectively. And I got Jalen Polk and Audric Estime. So I ended up trading back up for the 211 from 302 because I saw Jalen Polk slipping, had Drake May as well for the stack. So I wanted to go secure Troy Franklin and Jalen Polk with those back end seconds because my receiver core needed some help. So I feel pretty good about those trades. The net of those deals was basically that I got 211, 212, a 2025 second, which projects to be early to mid, for selling the 201, the 401, Josh Palmer, and then I also got 312 back, even though I traded it away initially. So I basically got 211, 212 a second for the 201, 401, and Josh Palmer. So I felt pretty good about the net of all of those trade downs, especially knowing that I needed a little bit more depth on this team. So this one's going to need a little bit more love, going to need a little bit more time, win a couple more trades. My number one goal right now is to try and sell off Drake May, try and sell off Bryce Young, whichever one I can do. Nobody seems to be willing to give me the value I want for Drake May or for Bryce Young or even Caleb Williams or Patrick Mahomes, who I could sell off as well. So I'm just going to hold. I'm just going to wait to see, because in my opinion, Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, and Drake May will all be top 8 startup picks pretty soon, and I am not selling them unless I can get that kind of value, at least respectably, for those guys. So for me, Bryce Young is the guy that I think I can sell right now for what I think he's worth. He would be a great sell, in my opinion, at this point in time. So moving on to the next league that we're going to talk about here, Comedy of Errors. This was a startup that I just joined this offseason with a lot of other, fantasy analysts on Twitter. 12 teams, 6 point per passing touchdown, super flex, half tight end premium, also has a league median as well. I went full punt out of the startup. Everybody was drafting competitive teams, so I basically just decided to draft a lot of draft picks. The rookie picks were actually selected during the draft because we drafted this team in March. I filled out my quarterback and wide receiver core really well during the rookie class. I had Trevor Lawrence as my main quarterback, but I also got Drake May at 104, as you can see. I got Bo Nix at 201, who fell to me. Michael Penix fell to me at 205 as well. So I felt pretty good about just completely loading up my quarterback core from this rookie class. I also got Marvin Harrison there. I got Rome Odunze to head out my wide receiver core in the long term. Christian Watson, Xavier Legette, Jalen McMillan, and some other guys at wide receiver. Still a little weak at that position, but definitely a great move so far. I ended up picking up like Rashad White during the startup just because I thought he was a big value. Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Chuba Hubbard, Damian Pierce. I just have a bunch of upside at running back, not a whole lot of solidified starters, but there is some upside that they could become decent options. And then at tight end, I got kind of screwed. I drafted Michael Mayer during the startup, and Brock Bowers was selected to the Las Vegas Raiders, so that kind of nuked my Michael Mayer. I made a couple trades this offseason to move off of 2 veterans that I took in the startup as well, where I gave up Rashee Rice because I'm scared shitless of Rashee Rice right now, man. Like all the shit that's going on with him. Maybe you could consider this a panic sell, but given the 2 players that I got, I feel like this was an appropriate value that I received. Michael Penix and Xavier Legette. I mean, I got quarterback equity for Rashee Rice, a guy that is just on this rampage to make as many legal problems as he can possibly find. I also sold off Chris Olave for a first and a second. The guy who bought Chris Olave seems to think he's a contender. I looked at his roster. He is absolutely not a contender in my opinion. So I believe those picks will be early to mid for Chris Olave, and I feel pretty good about selling him off. I didn't really want to sell him. I just thought that was a really good return for Chris Olave. And then I also, during the rookie draft, traded up from 108, where J.J. McCarthy went, and Jalen Polk at 208, and I received the 107 Rome Odunze and the 303 Jalen Wright. So the reason I traded up was because I didn't need another quarterback. I knew I had those other picks that were going to net me Michael Penix or Bo Nix or both, and I ended up getting both of them. So I was like, you know what, at 108, I need Rome Odunze with this pick. I need wide receiver help, and I went and traded up 1 spot to secure his services. So again, I feel pretty good about this team too. It's a long-term productive struggle, but a lot of upside, a lot of young players, and a couple picks in the bank to be able to build this thing out. So I feel pretty good about this one a lot. You'll notice a lot of my teams are either like in contending windows, or they're long-term productive struggles, or they're house monies. Those are like the only way that you're going to see me build out a team. There's very few teams. There's like one team I have where I think it might be in danger of being like the 4th or 5th best team in the league. For the most part, I either want to be 1st or 2nd, or I'm going to end up being a bad team that's rebuilding. So next team that we're going to break down here is the Too Lazy to Set Lineups League. And you guessed it, this is a best ball format given the name of the league. 12 team, PPR, best ball, super flex. Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes are my quarterbacks, with Sam Howell there as well. Pretty much nothing going on at running back. J.K. Dobbins, Tyrone Tracy, not really anything going on. Wide receivers was a massive, massive focus for me in this rookie class, given the strength of this class and given that I own a lot of next year's class. I have 4 1s next year, I have 3 2s next year, and I have 2 3s next year. And it is expected to be a better running back class next year. So my priority was to go along with Justin Jefferson, who I already had, add a bunch of receivers. Marvin Harrison, Xavier Worthy, Xavier Legette, Adonai Mitchell, Jalen McMillan, Tez Walker, Jacob Cowing, all these dudes, even the UDFAs too. I just wanted volume at wide receiver, especially knowing it's a best ball format. You can never be too deep at that position. At tight end, Cole Kmet, Tucker Kraft, and then a bunch of UDFAs I picked up as well. To me, I think that building up my wide receiver and quarterback core was really crucial for this team. With last year's team, when I broke this one down, it was in rough shape. Like, it was easily the worst team of my dynasty portfolio last year, and I ended up really punting this thing out, getting a lot of draft picks. I sold off Bijan Robinson. I sold off Kyron Williams. I sold off CJ Stroud. Unfortunately, ended up netting like Justin Jefferson, 2 firsts, 2 twos for all of those assets. I feel pretty good about how this team has, developed, and I do think that some of those firsts have a chance to get lucky and be early instead of mid or instead of late. So I feel pretty good about this team. I feel good that I'll be able to fill up my running back core next year, fill up maybe a tight end spot here and there, maybe make some trades to maneuver the board a little bit more. But yeah, this team is looking a lot better than it looked like last year. And I did make a couple trades for receivers during the rookie draft. I traded up from 210, gave in the 302, and went up and got Xavier Legette because I need wide receivers for this team. And I really felt that Xavier Legette was a tier break. Traded up from 211 and 310 to go get Adonai Mitchell. Didn't really have a whole lot of shares of him, so I went up and got him as well. Good upside piece for this team. So again, going to be a long-term rebuild. Probably won't compete this year. Definitely not with that running back core. Even if things broke right for me and all my receivers weren't hitting the nuts, I probably wouldn't be selling my 2025 picks for current production. I'll just wait till the 2025 class, spend those picks probably on running backs because that class is supposed to be good, and then I should be ready to go in my house money or even just true contender phase in 2025, which is a far cry from where I was last year. And if you want to check out last year's video when I broke down all of my leagues and all of my moves that I did last offseason, you can go back and check that out. I'll link that down below in the description. And then the FSE Listener League is going to be the last team I'm going to talk about really in depth because I have 2 more leagues, but there wasn't a whole lot that went on in terms of moves and rookie picks. So the FSE Listener League is probably the rebuild of mine that is in the worst shape right now. I was a 3-year contender. This league's been around since 2021, I believe, the 2021 season, and it's in bad shape. I didn't have a whole lot of stud talent because a lot of them retired. I had guys like Antonio Brown and Julio Jones and Leonard Fournette and guys that have got like Alvin Kamara, guys that have just gotten older. So that's what happens. I mean, when you go older out of the startup and you try and compete for a bunch of years, I made the championship twice, didn't win the championship once, which is unfortunate, but I built out a great depth wide receiver core here with Odunze, with Flowers, with Nico, with Christian Kirk, Jaden Reed, Deontay Johnson, Adonai Mitchell, Troy Franklin, all these guys built up a pretty solid wide receiver core. I do have some talent at quarterback now with Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix added. Really unfortunate that my main quarterback that I had was Justin Fields, and he ends up losing his job. And then at tight end and running back, I'm pretty light there with Ben Sinnott and Jalen Wright. Not much else to speak of over there. So hopefully I can hit on some of these picks. Hopefully I can make some more deals to secure some more 2025 pick capital because I don't really have any extra picks other than like an extra third in 2025. So this one's going to definitely take a little bit more rebuilding. It's going to take a little bit more love. So not a huge fan of this team, I'm not going to lie. And it's probably going to be pretty challenging for me to rebuild this without winning some trades here and there. I did mention some of the trades that I made during our strategy videos where I traded up from 107 to go get Jaden Daniels. I ended up sliding down from 202 to 207, get Jaden Daniels and Adonai Mitchell in exchange for JJ McCarthy and Keon Coleman. I also mentioned that I sold the Marvin Harrison Jr. pick in this league. I sold off that 102. I received Nico Collins, the 106, and the 208. To me, I needed a lot. So Rome Odunze versus Marvin, there's a difference, definitely. We're talking about a back-end first, early second-round startup pick versus a early to mid-third-round startup pick. But to me, Nico Collins and 208 Troy Franklin was enough to make up that difference given the state of my team. Again, you might disagree with that. Some people said I sold too low on Marvin. Some people said I got a good return for Marvin. That one's definitely up in the air. But to me, I felt like it made my team better in the long term. And it feels like I should be able to really gear focus away from my wide receiver core now in my rebuild, build out my running back core, maybe add a tight end here and there in trades in the draft. I'm still going to be looking to potentially cash out on a Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Tank Bigsby, anybody that lucks into some volume at the running back position. Maybe I can sell Jaden Reed having a great season or Christian Kirk having a great season, Deontay Johnson having a good season for more pick capital in 2025 because I can afford to shed some wide receivers in exchange for some running back or pick capital to help fill out my running back core. So again, this last team is probably the team that I feel the least confident in, but I do think I can still rebuild this one to a pretty high degree. And then these last 2 teams Haven't really done much in the rookie draft. Haven't done much in terms of trading in these two leagues. Haven't really made any trades. Only had one rookie pick between the two leagues. The Bitcoin League, full PPR, half tight end premium. My team is in a bit of a tougher spot, but only as the contender version. So my FSE Listener League team was like the rebuilders version of being in a tough spot. This is like the contenders version of being in a tough spot. Because to me, I think I need to be a little bit more active in this league. I need to make a couple more trades. I think my team is capable of competing, right? I got Herbert, Purdy, Bryce Young. That's a solid quarterback core. ETN, Javonte, Eckler, Kendre Miller, Estime. Decent running back core. Jefferson, London, Addison, Ridley, Judy, Gabe Davis. Those guys, again, pretty decent at wide receiver. David Njoku, Tucker Kraft, decent at tight end. It's just kind of like I'm destined for 4th or 5th place with this team, which is the thing that makes me nervous about this team. I still have all my future picks. I could make a move during the season, but to me, that seems a little panicky. So I'm going to kind of wait and see with this team. How does my team look at the beginning of the year? If Javonte Williams has turned the corner, if Eckler's being decent, if London's having a breakout season, if Judy has got a bounce back, if Ridley's had a bounce back, like my team will tell me if it's ready to compete with this one. And if it doesn't, I'm probably going to be selling off pieces and trying to retool this thing for 2025. So this is kind of a wait and see approach in the Bitcoin League. Basically, all of the money that we put into the pot goes into Bitcoin, and the pot is determined by how good Bitcoin is doing, which is an interesting wrinkle to this one. And then the last league that I'm in right now is the FlockMeSilly League, which is a startup that we just did this offseason. We did do it with rookie picks included, but I didn't feel like I was getting good value on any of the rookie picks, so I ended up going with a complete, utter contender right out of the startup. And I don't usually do this, but I ended up selling my first and my second to trade up during the startup draft, and I kind of immediately regretted it. So even sometimes I still make these mistakes, but I still think this is a top 3 team in the league, and I still think I could actually win the championship year one. 12-team PPR, 0.25 running back premium for first downs, 0.5 tight end premium as well, super flex league. Lawrence, Levis, Daniel Jones, little nerve-wracking at quarterback, I'm not going to lie. That's the real hinging point for this team. But Devon Achane, Isaiah Pacheco, Nick Chubb, Zamir White, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Singletary, Rico Dowdle. I think I got good volume plays at running back. Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, JSN, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin. Again, feel pretty comfortable with that wide receiver core. Between Goddard and Kmet and Waller and Ertz, I feel like I can get by at tight end as well. So again, this league was just drafted. There are no monsters, but I don't love this team. I'm not in love with this team. I feel like I got good stud talent at wide receiver, but my quarterback position makes me really fucking nervous, and hopefully I can make a trade here and there. Maybe I can upgrade from Will Levis to somebody better, or maybe I can upgrade from Daniel Jones to somebody better, or something like that, because this team makes me a little bit nervous. It's kind of built around running backs, not really as much at the quarterback and wide receiver position, although I am strong at wide receiver. So this is an interesting league. Hopefully I can compete this year, and we'll have to kind of wait and see on this one as well. So again, this was every move I made this Dynasty offseason. I documented every rookie pick I spent, every trade that I made, how all of my leagues are in certain positions. I got, 5 teams that are competing this year, 6 teams that are competing this year, 3 or 4 teams that are in kind of rebuild mode, 1 team that's kind of a wait and see approach. Like I've got teams all over the map right now. So there is no one approach to Dynasty. Of course, ideally, we all want teams that look like my Busch League team, which was the first team that I covered in this video, where I had like a million good players at running back, at wide receiver, at tight end, and at quarterback, but sometimes that's not realistic. I play in competitive Dynasty leagues. I wouldn't consider any of the Dynasty leagues that I play in where there's just complete morons that have no idea what they're doing. A lot of them are you guys, first of all. There's like 5, 6, 7 of these leagues that are listeners. A lot of them are Dynasty analysts. A lot of them are players that I'm in multiple Dynasty leagues with as well. So feel pretty good about my portfolio right now. I think I should be a little bit more competitive than I was last year. I had a really, really unlucky year where I made the finals in a bunch of leagues, made the playoffs in a bunch of leagues, and I wasn't able to secure very many championships. So hopefully this year I run a little bit hotter in the fantasy football playoffs with these Dynasty teams. So let me know down below what you thought of this video. Was this informative? Do you appreciate that I was, basically telling you guys exactly what my strategy is, especially if you're in leagues with me? Comment down below. Thanks for giving me your strategy, bro, and leave a like down below if you guys are in a league with me, because I'm basically telling you exactly what I'm thinking across all of my leagues. And also really appreciate if you are new around here, if you hit the subscribe button, because I guarantee you there are many Dynasty analysts not willing to put out on the line, on the chopping block, exactly how they're doing in their leagues, because that is what I'm doing with these. You can watch this video and be like, you don't know what you're doing, or you do know what you're doing, or you kind of know what you're doing. I basically outline my entire strategy. And of course, if you want to analyze your own teams, if you want me to analyze your team, head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE. When you sign up, you get first priority to Dynasty Decisions episodes where we break down your team, your decisions, your trades, your rookie picks, all that good stuff. If you're an annual Mother Flocker, you also get a free voucher to get a team review where we'll send you a personalized podcast about your team, and you can see exactly what we would do. Using our My Teams feature, we can see how good your team is, we can see how good the other teams in your league are, and we can give you some trade target ideas and that kind of thing. If that interests you, head on over to Flock Fantasy. Link will be down below in the description. Use the promo code FSE for 7 days for free, 30% off, 6 months for free when you sign up annually. Tons of content over there. Trade calculator, My Teams feature, trade value charts, Dynasty and rookie rankings. Tons of value over there. So if that interests you, check it out down below. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.